We've been gone for a minute.
Long time.
You've been dead.
Dead.
I've been dead for different reasons.
Yep.
But we're here, and we've got some music to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
One of the only reasons that I justify having a podcast when neither of us really needs to have one, right? Like nobody really needs to hear us talk about anything. One of the only reasons I justify it is something we don't do nearly enough of, and it's to give people an opportunity to hear music or discover artists or movies or things that they might enjoy that they otherwise wouldn't know.
Yep.
Or to at least to give them a different perspective on something that they may have um, seen a different way in the past or something like that. But I say all that to say this artist is kind of the epitome of that idea for me. We're sitting down today to review the new-ish. It's a couple weeks old at this point, but new-ish Duckworth album. All American Guy is the title for the purposes of this episode. Um, but Duckworth is a pretty interesting artist for me. I came across Duckworth first probably 4 or 5 years ago, maybe, and heard him on a soundtrack in a TV show at one point. Enjoyed the one song, looked into a couple of others of his, and then I've kind of slowly gotten into more and more of his catalog and enjoyed it quite a bit. 2 albums ago, he released an EP called SG8, I believe, that I was very big on. It was one of my favorite albums of that year. Um, Honestly, an album that I'm like, as I'm talking about it, I want to go revisit because it's been too long since I listened to it. I sent it to you a while back. I think you enjoyed a few of the tracks at least on there. But such a versatile, cool artist, such a unique sound compared to what's really happening now, and really, for me at least, more unique, or in like an avenue of styles that I haven't ever really been familiar with in the way that he blends various genres. But in leading up to this album, like I said, I've been a big fan of his, but with the singles that had come out prior to it, there was one or two that I thought were kind of cool, but I was really pretty disappointed in general with the singles as I was listening to them. So I wasn't really super stoked to hear the project. I wasn't really in love with the direction of it. But in preparing to hear this album, obviously not like an artist you're super familiar with, but how are you feeling prior to hearing this project?
So like you said, you sent me over SG8 a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably one of the very first artists that like started getting me introduced to like this newer sound and like not listening to just straight lyrical rap and
Yeah.
all that. Enjoyed quite a bit of it. I still listen to a couple songs from time to time. It'll just pop up.
Right.
Then he came out with Chrome Bull
Yeah.
and not very good.
Yeah, it wasn't my favorite
Yeah,
either.
no, like there's 2 songs that I like from that album that I'll still listen to every once in a
Mm-hmm.
while. Um, he's not somebody I've ever like gone out of my way to like
Yeah.
see what's popping and like, oh my gosh, he's gonna like I didn't know he was dropping.
Yeah.
Like, not to say that I don't like him or nothing, but he's just not on my radar like that.
Yeah.
Definitely one of the most unique vocals and producing patterns that I've heard from an artist.
Yeah.
The only thing that I wish is that he'd tap into his bars like I've seen him do. Like the only song that I like really know of is "Settle the Score with Corday"
Yeah.
for that Space Jam movie, and they both spazzed. Right,
Yeah.
they both popped off, and I kind of wish, and maybe that's just the rap fan in me, but I want to hear him spit. Like he does.
Yeah.
He does really solid on this album, in my opinion. I think. Well, and we'll get into it, but
Sure.
I think it'd be sick to hear him just straight up spit. He does it on one song, but
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that's probably the area of his catalog that I would say I wish there was more of. Because in spite of, or in contrast to other artists who try to be really versatile and are really weak in some areas. It's actually an area that I think he's pretty good at when he
Yeah.
does it. Like he's not going to be Kendrick Lamar or whoever with the lyrical content,
Right.
but his ability to switch up his style and do like really spit or really go in with a good flow on tracks is he's not bad at
Right.
it. But something you mentioned of his style that has always stuck out to me as well was the production side of things. In the preparation leading up to this album, I was curious to hear where it would go because, like I said, there was a couple tracks, one in particular, as far as singles, that I really liked the production direction. It was really funky, really groovy, with a little bit of this kind of hip hop alternative flair in it. And then the other songs that came out were similar stylistically, but I wasn't totally in love with the sound.
Yeah.
But overall, I would say I enjoyed a good amount of the production on this album. Like I kind of alluded to, there's a lot of this kind of groovy, funky elements to it with the use of the synthesizers. There's some really, really cool kind of pop rock alternative riffs and guitars in there as well. And then he kind of, I don't want to say pulls it all together, but like kind of a commonality through it is like this little hint of kind of hip hop stylistic production that kind of keeps the pattern of the album feeling very similar despite all of the different production
Yeah.
styles that it incorporates. It was an area that I really liked listening to it throughout the album, kind of going through um, the story. It was really cool to kind of hear that common sound, yet with such diversity in
Yeah.
it. I ended up giving the production side of things an 8.
Yeah. So I'm sitting at an 8 too. I like I was saying, like very, very different when it comes to a production side, and it's something that I really love about Duckworth. But on top of that, not only is it just phenomenal in my opinion, but it really um compliments.
Yeah.
I don't know why I couldn't think that word. It really compliments his voice and the way that his vocals, like how he portrays his vocals,
Yeah.
and so I think that's like bread and butter. Um, for what this album is titled, total left field with how the production ended up being.
Yeah.
Like, I'm thinking it's going to be a little bit more like heavier or a little bit more on the hip hop side, but it's super groovy.
Yeah.
Like, a good amount of tracks are mellow. The lyrics don't match the production, except for maybe a couple here and
Yeah.
there. But like for the most part, like totally took me for surprise. Um, which I can also appreciate because like he's telling this story, but it's from his perspective.
Right.
And so it's not something that I would think of where it is going to be a little bit darker, heavier. But to try to kind of think like this is what's going on in his mind, this is how he's portraying it is it's super cool. So
Yeah.
I think the production overall is really solid.
Yeah. And to kind of segue into our next category, you also brought up the vocal style on the album. It does complement very well with the production, like you mentioned. I think um, he is such a versatile artist in being able to do so many kinds of things. He does this like kind of funky poppy vocal really well. And it's hard to describe his voice because it is so unique. Like, there's not really a comparison that
Yeah.
you can point to. Like, is it Post Malone? No, like not even close. Is it like The Weeknd? No, it's like in such its own avenue that it's hard to describe, um, like with a comparison. But I do think he blends all of these production or all these genres that he uses production from. He incorporates elements of those vocal styles as well to equally blend out and diversify the vocals on
Yeah.
the album. So I found myself really enjoying what he had to offer. There was moments on the album where he kind of broke away from that kind of psychedelic, groovy, funky thing and did more of like a traditional pop R&B vocal where I was like blown away. Like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, I didn't know. I knew he could sing, but like, whoa, okay. That's pretty cool.
Bro got in his bag.
Yeah, and then there is moments where he goes into a little bit more of a hip hop avenue. Not as much as I would personally like, but he showcases that he can still do it. It's not higher for me because I do think there's a slight repetitive nature to the sound that really I only my attention gravitated towards that because he of the times that he does break it up and diversify and he does something a little more pop or a little more hip hop and you're like, whoa, okay, he can do way more than what we're getting a taste of on this album, even though it is diverse, it is interesting, it is unique. Um, but I gave vocals an 8 also. It was the other selling point of the album for me. Like when I come back to tracks on here, the production and the vocals are the two things that I'm really coming to enjoy.
Yeah. I'm a little bit lower. I'm at a 7. Um, just because I do give a lot of credit because I am somebody who I love to hear those who are super diverse and super in their own lane.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I don't get annoyed with their voice
Sure.
at times. And unfortunately, Duckworth is one of those people where I can't listen to him like super consistently just because there's something with his voice. I love his voice, but I can't listen to it. It's like Jay-Z for me. I've had this conversation with you, and that's for a conversation for a whole other day.
Yeah.
But it's just the voice itself. I do agree. I think that him going into a couple different lanes on this project help his case for this album. Just showcasing his talent and showing more off what he can do. Um, I do wish we got way more of that.
Yeah.
He has this, and this is just spitballing ideas at this point, but he has this album cut up into 4 chapters.
Yeah.
And it could have been super cool to do like 4 different styles, whether that's this pop R&B or hip hop, and then like what he normally does or whatever. But I do agree. Once I got a taste of these other sounds from him, it made the rest of it sound super. I don't really want to say repetitive, but like repetitive.
Yeah.
I guess. But yeah, still give it a 7. It's still he still kills it. So
Yeah. And it is impressive to me, like we've been talking about, that he is able to be in such his own avenue, and yet to me it also doesn't feel like something that's that far out of what you hear in the mainstream. You know what I mean? It's not like he's doing something so totally experimental where it's like, yeah, obviously nobody's going to be listening to this because it's not what you're accustomed to hearing. Like, it has elements that you're like, okay, this kind of does fit into the modern pop hip hop landscape.
Yeah.
But to kind of switch lanes a little bit here in talking about the lyrical content performance on the album, there's a lot of storytelling going on here and a lot of kind of self-reflection, and particularly as the title reflects, like reflection on kind of the toxic nature uh, of Duckworth when it comes to his relationships and how he handles himself and kind of attempting to reconcile that and improve and change a little bit, like recognizing the error of his ways in a few different areas on the album. Um, I appreciated the attempt to kind of utilize songs and song structure to storytell at various parts. Um, there was a couple of moments that I appreciated the metaphors that were being used and the way he was going about reflecting on things. For example, the song Grayscale, which was a single that I didn't really love first hearing it. In the context of the album, I think it's a pretty cool song in talking about like comparing relationships to the intro of the track where he's talking about like being at the movies and like kind of the parallels between the idea of like silver screen, black and white movie, like photography terms, taking all of that grayscale and kind of mirroring that in a relationship sense, or at least applying it to the context of a relationship being like gray area, not really like inherently being a bad person, like not doing the worst things, but also kind of not being like as good as he feels like he could be or should be. There's moments like that that I think are really cool and that I do appreciate and respect on the album. There's just too many moments for me that are like cheesy, corny bars. Like as funny as it was that it made me laugh, like when he's talking about people trying to call him and he's like, I'm just on the plane trying to watch Shrek.
I was literally going to bring that up.
Like it's bars like that where you're just like that. I'll give him credit because the shock value of hearing that, or just like the absurdity of it, did make me laugh. I'm not gonna lie,
Yeah.
but it made me laugh because it was like, what are we doing here? Like, what the heck is like what? But I have respect for areas of it. There were moments that were just too cheesy for me.
Yeah.
And so I gave the lyrics a 6. It was just slightly above the midline 5 that I would give him if it lived up to kind of his mid standard that he's done. But it was a little bit better than that in areas. So
That's funny. I literally was going to bring up the whole Shrek line.
yeah,
I gave it a 6 too. I think he absolutely kills it for the most of this album when it comes to his storytelling. I think the way that he wrote, I'll say this like June 1st, um, phenomenally written song. Really enjoy that one. And it's moments like that where I can really show my appreciation towards him. Because I'm not familiar with anything like that from his previous two
yeah,
albums. Um, but the it takes such a big hit because there are way too many, like you said, corny, cheesy moments, which
yeah.
happens. Like I get it, but because there's too many, that's what gives it such a big hit. But like I said, the story writing in itself is really really well done.
Yeah, and I agree with that for the most part, which to kind of transition here into talking about the theme concept of the album. I mean, we've alluded to a little bit that it's really about exploring those negative aspects of him through self-reflection, particularly when it comes to relationships and kind of the toxic habits that he feels like he's identified in himself, and kind of approaching it in a storytelling sense from literally like skits on the album to kind of song structure and songwriting, that storytell and further along the story. There's elements of it that I think are really cool. I love the ambition to go for a concept with this one because it is an album that you could just throw out there, still attempting to tell the story you're going to tell, but just make it straight pop songs like without a whole lot of cohesiveness to kind of make it have a little bit more quote unquote mainstream appeal to like just the average listener
Yeah.
for whatever algorithm you want to name for it to do better on. But I really respect him going for kind of a storytelling concept here to make it an album listening experience. I did find myself enjoying it quite a bit. There's a couple moments on it that are just a little too melodramatic for my personal liking
Yeah.
of how the album is. Like, for example, the chapter title announcements that come at the beginning of every skit are really like super melodramatic, like that it's going to be this big intense thing.
Yeah.
And then the skits are kind of a little bit goofy, like on purpose. It's not like they're
Yeah.
poorly made skits. Like they're supposed to kind of be like, oh, that's kind of like a goofy situation.
Yeah.
Um, and then the songs are like so funky and upbeat that it just there's aspects of it that are a little bit too like they don't match up very well.
Yeah.
It's a little bit too dramatic in some areas for its own good. Um, I also agree with you. I think the storytelling in chapters is interesting, and the story does develop in each category, but I would have appreciated like trying to diversify those a little bit more and making them just a little bit more distinct stylistically, because you get in this first song in it, or in this first stint, and it's literally like first track as outside of the skit is toxic romantic,
Yeah.
like literally talking about
Yeah.
him knowing that he's toxic, that people in his life are telling him he's toxic, but it's like so upbeat and fun, and it doesn't really stray too far stylistically from that style in the
Yeah.
album. Whereas I feel like it could have gone from being like, yeah, I kind of recognize I'm not this, guy, but it's all right. I'm having a good time. I don't
Yeah.
really care that much. To the points in the album where he does realize, like, maybe I'm not who I want to be, and it kind of sucks. Like those like tracks that seem like they should be more heartfelt as far as the lyrical content don't really match up with the sound.
Yeah.
And so just for me being like nitpicky, pedantic, whatever you want to call it, um, it yeah, it was a six for me. I liked it, but it was just lacking in some areas.
Yeah, you definitely dove into it way deeper than I did. I gave it an 8. Because when I think of a concept album, um, this is what I picture. Granted, not to a T. I don't think everybody should be writing about being this way, but it's the fact that he was able to keep this story moving along. I feel like there was that development that him himself needed to go through. I do agree that when they were doing like the chapters, like I do
Happened
agree.
to a lot.
Yeah, like definitely doesn't. It's bipolar. It's
Yeah.
literally super upbeat, funky, and then super like, yeah,
Yeah.
you know.
I know what you said.
Um, but like put that aside. I think the story itself, he killed it. I think he nailed the chapters themselves. Do I wish that like in each song it was a little bit different and there was more diversity from each chapter? Sure. Um, but those are the kinds of things I put into like production and then like uh lyrics. That's where I left those hits.
Yeah.
Um, but like even to end it out, like most stories when portrayed in media, like they wanted to like oh like yeah, there you'll always find happiness and like fairy tale endings, things like that. So
Yeah.
like real life, the fact that like he didn't get his girl back in the end because
Yeah.
that's messed up. Like I like the ending because it's
Yeah.
real and it like the last track said it was like he learned why he couldn't love her is because he didn't love himself, like
Yeah.
all those kinds of things. So I
Yeah.
thought that just like the story itself is like a story that really like gave me a great hook, reeled me all the way into the end, and finished it off with a great ending. So I think as a concept, killed it. So
There you go. I mean, I can't disagree with that really all that much. Astute analysis as per usual. But moving into our next category that we talk about being the features, really not too much feature presence here. There's some credits for features here and there. There's a few different artists that appear. Um, Really, the main one that sticks out to me as far as like an interesting feature was IDK. I enjoyed his performance on it. I thought he added a cool flavor, definitely in his avenue from things that I've heard from him. Um, I personally would have liked to hear a little bit more in terms of feature presence.
yeah,
Not that it needed like to be a Travis Scott or Kanye album where almost every song has somebody on it. Um, because it is kind of personal content, it is personal territory, and he doesn't really need all that many other people to help further that story. But from a stylistic perspective, I do think like Childish Gambino could have done something really cool on
yeah,
it. And while Childish Gambino's a huge artist, and maybe Duckworth, wouldn't I don't know his means that he has. Maybe hypothetically, if he weren't able to get like a Childish Gambino, there's other artists out there like Kaytranada or Amine or just other artists that kind of do something similar to him, but they're totally different
yeah.
in their own avenue. That I would have liked to hear them do something on there.
Mhm.
But all in all, I don't hate the relative lack of features. I don't hate anyone's performance particularly, but it was missing just a little bit something from for myself. So Oh, excuse me. I gave features a 6.
So I'm just a little bit higher. I'm at a 7. I didn't really mind the lack of features. It didn't. What Duckworth is really good is filling up empty space, all of the empty space. I don't feel like there's any space
Yeah.
left given. Whether that's dubs and ad libs and these filters on his vocals, or that's trumpets on top of synthesizers and these crazy kicks and these horns and the like,
Yeah.
he just always makes sure that there's no more space that can be given. And so I don't ever feel like he always needs a feature. And so I never felt like, oh, this song would have been cool with a feature, or oh, like I wish he would have done two more songs with somebody like a Childish Gambino, or
Yeah.
do another song with Corday or whatever. I thought the features that he had on there were solid. I think IDK killed his performance, um, but I don't know what could have made it higher than a 7. I just know it can't be higher than a 7. but
Yeah.
but it was great.
Respect. Um, moving into the last subject here to just kind of wrap up talking about the overall enjoyment of the project, how often we'll come back and listen to this one. For me personally, like I said, I didn't love most of the singles. I was a big fan of Had Enough. I really liked that one. But wasn't really totally in love with other ones that did come out. Upon my first listen through the album, even, I wasn't totally in love with it. It was kind of like, for me, it felt like a little bit, I don't even know how to describe this, like a little bit too out there, but also a little bit too reserved. Like he was
Mm,
kind of sticking in his own avenue, but like in an avenue that wasn't the area that he's his best at, if that makes sense.
yeah,
And so, while I still feel like maybe some of that criticism is true, honestly, on the second listen through the album, I enjoyed the sound and the individual tracks quite a bit more, to the
yeah,
point where there was like a handful of songs that I heard that I'll like listen to again, songs that were singles that I didn't enjoy that I'll probably end up coming back to now that I've heard them in the context of the album, like Grayscale, for
yeah,
example. Um, so overall, it was definitely an album I enjoyed. I know you're not on this train, but to me, like the gold standard this year has been the Weeknd's album. In my view, this one's kind of like head and shoulders below that one. So it's not like the best thing I've heard all year, but with the relative lack of albums that I have enjoyed, it is one of the more enjoyable projects that I've heard this year. So I ended up giving it a 7 in this category. It's kind of above the middle of the pack, but not quite top tier to me.
yeah. Who else have we reviewed? We've like The Weeknd. We've done
Playboy
Playboy.
Cardi,
Um, who else have we reviewed?
it's been one of those years. I don't know.
Because
I don't remember what I ate for breakfast, if we're being honest. Um,
I only bring that up to say I think
yeah.
this might surprisingly be my favorite uh album currently this year.
I
Um,
mean, I can't hate on that. Like
and it's mainly because even though it's not a
we did
concept.
the Kane Brown as well.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So I'm gonna stick with my answer.
Yeah.
Um, it's so like I was saying, like it's not because of like what's being said during some of these songs, because some of these songs I don't really care for,
Sure.
but it's the fact that this is an album I can throw on at any moment in time and
Yeah.
not actually have to worry about the substance given. There's a couple songs on here where
Heavy is the head.
oh, that's the greatest album of all time.
Shout out to
Pretty
J
soon.
Max album 2025. That's what it says on Apple Music.
Oh yeah, that was January.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a while.
There you go.
This April?
Yeah. I also personally love the St. John album, but I don't know
Mm,
if you've listened to that.
I haven't yet. But yeah, they're like there's great storytelling, which I am a sucker for, no
Yeah.
matter the genre, the artist, whatever.
Right.
That IDK feature like really had me
Yeah.
jumping. Like I
Yeah.
really loved it.
Hard to deny.
the vocals in some of the songs are basically everything that I need in an album. Like, granted, I'm not gonna say it's like a perfect album or
Sure.
like
Yeah.
whatever, but there's so much substance within this album that I can take away from and I actually love. So Enjoyment came out to an 8. I'll probably come back to listen to a lot of these songs.
Yeah, there is quite a handful that I'll come back to. Honestly, it'll be an album for me that I'll probably even like in the next couple of weeks just dive through another re-listen through based on the fact that that second album or listening experience was so much more enjoyable for
Yeah.
me to be like, okay, let me now that I've heard it on both sides, let me give
Yep.
it another listen.
Yep.
But overall, it came out to just shy of a 7 out of 10 for me. That's I would say pretty like close to how I feel. As I kind of mentioned, at this point, it's probably my third favorite album I've heard this year. But two and three, like maybe I'm glazing, as Asher said in the episode, but like that Weekend album is just so much better than anything else I've heard this year that it's like these two are good and like honestly both of them might still make a top 10 list and may even be pretty high. Like I don't know what the year has in store, but like I don't foresee anything really getting close to that one for me, at least at this point.
Valid.
But
Yeah, mine just came right above a 7. It's a 7.3.
yeah.
It's the second greatest album this year, but Heavy is the Head is pretty freaking great.
J Mac with Dirty Mike, Heavy as the Head on streaming platforms right now. It's a good album. It's honestly not even a half bad album.
Thanks.
Anyways, shameless plug, but back to you.
I think that's it. Just
Yeah.
right above.
Well, to dive into a couple of tracks here to talk about these ones. Honestly, my list, take this with such a grain of salt because this was like such a half trying to remember what songs were which.
Yeah.
That like this could be 100% different in like a week when I re-listen to this thing. But my personal favorite, at least for the songs that were doing pretty well as far as streaming numbers, I really like the track Escapist. The vocal performance was crazy on that one. He sounded great, did things that I've never heard him do vocally, while still maintaining that unique style and sound that makes the album distinct. My personal least favorite, call me crazy, it doesn't even really have that much to do with the sound. I was not in love with the Ken doll song. Um, just that it was doing too much.
Yeah.
With the lyrical content for me to be on board with it.
Yeah.
Not my cup of tea. If you like it, I get it. It's a groovy song. It doesn't sound bad at all. It's just, it wasn't for me.
Yep.
And then most underrated, it's still pretty popular, but just compared to everything else that's trending on the album right now, the single that came out a while ago, Had Enough, I think is just one of the funkiest, catchiest, fun songs on the album. That is one that I've enjoyed since it came out. I still enjoy it in the context of the album. So yeah, those are my picks.
Dude, we almost had a 3 for 3.
Oh,
almost. I do have the only difference is I do have two best songs. Because I do agree. I think Escapist is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But I would regret, even though we probably have like two people watching,
Sure.
and I appreciate those two people.
Yeah.
But I'd feel bad if I didn't say June 1st was what I consider the best as well. I had to shout that one out. I really do love the storytelling aspect of it.
Yeah.
I agree with the worst. It's Kendall.
It's funny because it's the most trending song.
Is
from
it really?
the album. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. Besides the production, I don't get how somebody likes this song.
This goes back to Ryan Gosling in the Barbie movie with the grievances that Jaden had about that. Tune into that episode back in the catalog that we reviewed if you want more comprehensive details about this.
Anything Barbie related, I just get PTSD now.
Yeah.
So,
like, jokes aside, it wasn't even that for me, but like, I don't even know how much detail I want to go into in this episode. But just like the innuendo and like the context of the lyrics was just doing way too
Yeah,
much for me. I
no,
was
I
like,
agree.
I can't even take this anymore.
Yeah, no, I not a fan of it. If you like it, weird. Most underrated, I chose Pitbull. Um, I just think it's not a duo I would think to
Yeah,
picture,
sure.
and yet I think I want more of them doing music together. So
Yeah.
I think they killed it respectfully. So
Yeah, I can't even really disagree with anything there. Um, uh, Drake, we reviewed the Drake album
oh
also.
yeah, no, that doesn't count.
Blocks that from memory.
Yeah, that's
Um,
worst album of the year.
well, I think that wraps things up. We have a special episode in
We
the
do.
works. That's all I'll say for now.
Yeah, working on the schedule. Working with scheduling.
Goodbye.